Hey, and welcome to the Joie Miller Podcast. I'm Pastor Joie Miller from Champion Christian Center, and I'm so excited that you tuned in today for one of my favorite topics, and that is the topic of gratitude. Gratitude is a key that will absolutely change your life. It's so simple. Nothing in your life has to change to implement gratitude. In fact, I heard a quote that once said, gratitude will cause you to love the life that you already have. And so I want to dive into this topic. We're here in November, all things with Thanksgiving and being grateful, but truly this is a key that will change not only your spiritual life, it'll affect your soul, it'll bring you joy. And so we're going to dive into the topic of gratitude, and then I'm going to end with some tips that you can implement to make gratitude a part of your daily life. So gratitude is a big deal. In fact, the Bible talks about gratitude being one of the ways to access the presence of God in a very quick way. The Bible says, enter your gates with praise and in your courts with thanksgiving. That when we enter God's presence, nothing attracts him more than a heart that is grateful and acknowledges him. And, I was thinking about gratitude and how it's so connected with our faith. It's almost like one of those hidden elements, a hidden ingredient in our faith that we can easily forget about, or life makes us stop activating our gratitude. So today I want you to really become intentional with gratitude, not just for the month of November, but to start living a life. This will transform you. Maybe you're in a funk. Maybe you battle with seasonal depression. Maybe you're going through postpartum. Maybe you're just in a spot in life that you're just not really happy with right now. You're not feeling that breakthrough is here, or your life isn't where you want it to be. Gratitude will change everything. So when I think about gratitude, I think about the Israelites in the Bible and how they had an opportunity to really see a huge breakthrough. They were coming out of slavery into the promised land, a prayer that they had been praying and crying out for years. And finally, God answers their prayer. And so they were in a place of slavery. Egypt was horrible, and Moses brings them out by the mercy and the grace of God. And so they're coming out, and it says this in the Bible in chapter 11 of Numbers. It says, one day some foreigners among the Israelites became greedy for food, and even the Israelites themselves began moaning, "We don't have any meat." In Egypt, we could eat all the fish we wanted. There were cucumbers, melons, all kinds of onions and garlic, but we're starving out here, and the only food we have is manna. And so it goes on and it talks about the manna that God provided for them every day. And it said that the Israelites in verse 10 stood around their tents complaining. Moses heard them and was upset that they had made the Lord angry. And so he goes on and he asked the Lord about these Israelites who are complaining. And in verse 18, it says, as for the Israelites, I have heard them complaining about not having meat and being better off in Egypt. And it says, basically, tell them to get their lives right, or I'm not going to take them any further in this journey to the promised land. And wow, the Israelites were brought out of slavery in Egypt, and all of a sudden there was a situation where they got hungry and dissatisfied, and they started to complain before the Lord. And I love what it says. It says that a foreigner among them had become greedy for food. So they started to also turn their attention and magnify what was wrong in the situation. And one of the things that will take you out of gratitude quickly is to get your eyes focused on the wrong things. In the day and age that we live in, we can get our eyes focused on social media, other families that we wish we could be like, other careers that people have. You name it. We start this comparison game of getting our eyes focused on the wrong things. Even around Thanksgiving and the holiday season, it's easy to become overwhelmed by what other people are doing, what other people are buying, and the things that they have. And when we start to magnify these things over what God has given us and done in our lives, our hearts lend towards comparing and complaining. Comparison oftentimes leaves us in that space of complaining. I don't have enough. I don't look like them. My husband doesn't treat me like that. We can't go away for the holidays. thinking about what we don't have and fixating our eyes on that rather than the blessings that God has given us in our lives. And so the sooner that we can realize that what we meditate on is going to be magnified in our lives, we have now a responsibility to guard our hearts and to guard our perspective of what we allow to become really big issues that God hasn't called us to meditate on. Once again, I love that quote. Gratitude causes you to love the life you already have. That there are blessings upon blessings that are in your world right now, that if you would take a minute and magnify those blessings over the things that you don't like or the things that other people have, then you would find a place of contentment. And so God basically says this area of complaining is going to keep the Israelites out of the promised land, a prayer that they had been praying for years and years and years. And so I want to ask you, are there things that you have been praying for and believing God for that you're actually now currently walking in, but instead of thanking God for them, you're complaining about them? That we have to be very proactive in watching our perspective and how we are continuing to honor God as He's answering our prayers. God was answering the Israelites' prayers. And just because it didn't look like the foreign food or it didn't look like what they thought it should look like, it took their hearts into a place of complaining. Instead of being grateful that they had food every day, being grateful that He gave them, a cloud by day and a fire by night. I mean, God gave them everything that they needed. In fact, part of the reason that He was taking them out into the desert was to reveal Himself to them as Jehovah, as provider, as the one who would take care of all of their needs. And instead of them recognizing that, they were looking at what they didn't have. And complaining will repel faith. Complaining, just like gratitude is an ingredient that will compel your faith, complaining is an ingredient that will completely disdain God, that it will actually put limits on your faith. If you have an attitude of complaining, it's basically saying, God, I'm ungrateful for what you've given me. You haven't met any of my needs, and you're never going to. Gratitude, on the other hand, is praising God for who He is and saying, God, I know that you are my provider. I know that you're my source, and everything that I need is found in you. And because of who you are, now I am grateful. I realize the breath I breathe even today is just because that you have given it to me. And so when we learn to implement gratitude, we start to attract God. We start to live a life of greater faith. Not only a greater faith, and we're going to talk about that in a second, but we start to be happier. I mean, if you look up reports, gratitude is not just something that the Bible talks about, even though it originated in the Bible. It's something that even the science world is talking about. Mental health. Maybe, like I said, you're dealing with depression. Where's your gratitude? Where is your mind going? Are you going towards the negative, or are you staying in a position of the positive? Everybody has a decision to make. Somebody always has it better than you, and somebody always has it worse than you. And you have to decide what you're going to focus on, and you have to steward your thoughts and your speech properly. Hey, it's Joey. I hope you're enjoying today's podcast. I want to invite you to check out our Christmas bundles. Maybe you have a friend or you have a secret Santa that you want to bless somebody with some great faith-filled gifts. Check out joiemiller.co and find our bundle package that might be just right for you. I was driving down the road today and I happened to catch someone saying that one of the favorite things that they like to do that makes their heart so happy is to spend time with their parents. And in the natural, right, our thoughts and our meditations go towards what I don't have. And so my father died this year and my mother had passed away in 2007. And my immediate heart response was, poor me. Like, oh, I wish I had a family that was healthy, that I could spend time with my parents. And isn't that great for them? And I wanted to go down a path of complaining. And I caught myself in that moment and I said, you have a perspective pivot that you can make in this moment. You can pivot your perspective not towards what you don't have and poor me and life dealt me this way and I'm just going to complain. You could pivot towards, well, I might not have that, but I can be that. And so, I had to reconfigure my thoughts towards constructive thoughts of, even though I might not have that in the sense of being able to enjoy my parents, I can thank God that I am healthy and strong and I have 5 amazing kids and grandbabies and bonus daughters to be able to enjoy life with. And so it set my heart, instead of being in a perspective of loss and victim and complaining, into a perspective of faith. Now I'm excited about my future. Now I'm declaring, with a long life, you will satisfy me. Now I'm imagining life with my children and what that will look like. I'm taking care of my health because I want to be a healthy parent for my children. And so it's a perspective pivot. Are you able to pivot your perspective today into gratitude? Are you staying in a place of woe is me, things are never going to turn out for me, in a place of complaining? God works in the element of faith, and gratitude ushers in our faith in God. I heard it said like this. In fact, the Bible talks about in Philippians, it says, send forth your prayer with thanksgiving, make your request known to him, in Philippians 4. And he's saying, look, after you've done all these things, after you've prayed, thank God for them. There is an element that whenever we pray and then thank God, we are saying we are so sure that it is done that I'm going to go ahead and send my thanks ahead of time. Think about when you go into a restaurant. I always use this illustration. When a waiter comes, you don't tip them in the beginning. You tip them after you've received the service. If you gave it in the beginning, they would be like, wow, they really have a lot of faith in me that I'm going to do my job. Well, when we give thanks to God, it is like tipping him in advance, because we know that he is going to make do on who he says he's going to be. It's saying, I don't have to wait for everything to be perfect in my life. I know you're a faithful God, and I know that joy is now. I know that peace is now. I know provision is now, not because of a external manifestation of it, but because it's the God that I serve. And so pivot your perspective today to not waiting for getting in that space of complaining and comparing and looking at what you don't have, if only life could be, and take this opportunity to say, God, I am so grateful for who you are, that you are the author and the perfecter of my life. And everything that I have is because of you. And I'm going to go ahead and send my praise in advance, because I know that you have plans to prosper me and not to harm me. When you start to talk like that, you better believe the blessing of God is attracted to your life. And all of a sudden, not only is his blessing upon you, but you just feel better. It breaks any sort of discouragement. It breaks any sort of negativity over your life. You have joy. You have peace in the now. Don't wait for everything to be perfect to give God thanks and praise. Say, I'm going to give him thanks now. And as I do, I'm going to actually get to experience the benefits that he has to offer me in the moment. Remember, gratitude helps you to love the life you already have. So I want to give you some tips for gratitude. I want to challenge you to operate at least a few times a week, if not daily, in these gratitude strategies. And a lot of ways that you can do this is to actually physically write down the things that you're grateful for. This exercise will only take you about 5 minutes a day, but it will transform your whole life. And if you say, I can't do 5 minutes a day, start with maybe just on Saturday morning, saying, I'm going to reflect on this past week, and I'm going to take time to create a gratitude page of everything that is good in my life, and it's going to set me up for the next week. It's way too easy to get negative. It's way too easy to go down paths of comparison and complaining. Do a pivot of your perspective through gratitude. So here's some tips for you to remain grateful. Number one is be as specific as possible in your gratitude. The more you really think about things and you get specific, the more grateful that you are. So really get specific and tangible about it. Like, you really appreciate that family member because they ... And so you can really start to celebrate the blessings in your life. Number two is go deep. Get detailed about a specific thing that you're grateful for. Instead of saying like, I'm grateful for the trees and the sky and the breath, focus on one area of your life. Maybe it's provision and you're like, God, I am so grateful that you are a provider, and start writing down all the ways that he has provided for you even today. If you start to really get really tangible with this, you're going to realize that there's blessings in your life that you would have before just kind of not even thought about. But when you're forced to go into detail, you're like, wow, like you really did provide, or that cup of coffee my friend gave me, and you start to become overwhelmingly thankful for the blessings in your life. Remember, what you meditate on magnifies. So if you're meditating and thinking on all the ways that you're blessed, that's going to be what's magnified in your life. Number 3 is this: get personal. Try to focus on people rather than things. Sometimes we're thankful for things, but when we can really start to be grateful for people, they're connected to relationships in our life and they enrich us even more. So thinking about the relationships, it's way too easy to get into a mindset of isolation, or nobody cares, or nobody is as great as a friend as I am. But when you have that perspective pivot and you really start to take an account, you're like, wow, like they did that for me and they didn't have to, or they called me, or, they thought about me in that way. And so, it's really a matter of celebrating the moments that are good rather than meditating on the moments that maybe we were disappointed or bad. So get personal with it. Number 4 is consider subtraction as well as addition. And I love this. Thinking about one of the ways, not in a morbid way, but if you think about like, wow, like I'm really grateful for my husband. I'm really grateful that he's here. Some people have lost their spouses, and I can lay in bed at night and I can see him breathing beside me. And that causes you to have a perspective of gratitude. Not that you go down a path of fear and loss, but just taking the little things and celebrating for what you do have. And then thanking God for the things that maybe didn't work out, that maybe were removed from your life, that you saw how he turned around and used them for your good. Thanking him for his protection, thanking him for directing your path in a certain way. So that's always a good way to celebrate and make sure that we're not taking things and people for granted. Another thing is this, see things as a gift rather than an entitlement. So if we go through life just assuming that we're entitled to things, we're going to be disappointed quickly. But when we look at the things around us as gifts rather than something that we deserve, our hearts start to explode with gratitude. Like, God, I didn't deserve that today, but you blessed me with it. I didn't deserve to be treated like that from my spouse, but they went the extra mile. I didn't deserve that hug from my kids, so to say, but I'm so thankful for it. And so when you have that mentality, people are actually blessing you rather than falling from your expectations. The Israelites felt entitled to the meal that they had in Egypt. So instead of being thankful for the manna and the quail, they were complaining. And so, so really thinking that I'm not entitled to anything. It's by God's grace, and all these things are great gifts to my life. Number 6 is write these things down regularly. Make them on the forefront of your mind. Try not to repeat is number 7. Try to make different things that you're grateful for, because there's different things every day if you do this exercise and really take time to dive into it. And number 8 is savor the surprises, the unexpected blessings in your life. Write them down like we talked about. Celebrate them. Don't let the day go by without taking a second and thanking God for those little surprises, whether it's from him or it's from somebody else. Thanking God that things worked out just a little bit better for you today because you're favored by God. As you implement gratitude, your whole life will change. Stay grateful, make those pivot on your perspective, and see what God does in your life. See you soon.